and thank you for joining us, taking time from your busy schedule. It is 7 o'clock, and I want to welcome you all. And our first agenda for the day is as a proclamation recognizing the 28th and 29th District State Legislatures. And it is with pleasure that we welcome you. And I can speak for my colleagues. We appreciate all you do in Olympia to support Lakewood. Thank you. And in reading this proclamation, it is my honor. Our first agenda. Oh, thank you. It is my honor to read this proclamation and appreciation. And it reads, and whereas the city of Lakewood expresses its appreciation to the Washington State Legislature for the dedication to public service. And whereas Senator Tawana Nobles, Representative Mary Levitt, and Representative Melanie Morgan, and Representative Steve Corby, Senator Steve Conway, Steve Kirby of the Legislative District 29, serving the residents of Lakewood, having worked diligently in support of the City of Lakewood's 2022 legislative agenda. And whereas the legislatures passed a transportation revenue package, Move Ahead Washington, a $17 billion investment over the next 16 years. And whereas the legislator allocated $250,000 to conduct a study examining option for multimodal high-capacity transportation to serve the travelers on the I-5 corridor between Central Thurston County and Pierce County. And whereas legislators of the 28th and 29th District continue to advocate for the geographic equity and discharge from state facilities, which led to an allocation of $250,000 for the development of a report on the graphic location of behavioral health, long-term care facilities, and residential settings that are needed for individual discharge from state psychological hospitals. And whereas the state legislators collaborated with the South Sound Military Community Partners, SSMCP, South Sound Communities, and the City of Lakewood to allocate $75 million for the Move Ahead Washington Transportation Package toward primarily engineering and the right-of-way acquisitions through the Nisqually River. And now, therefore, the Lakewood City Council, on behalf of the residents of the Lakewood City, pay tribute to the legislators of the 28th and 29th Legislative District, Senator Tawana Nobles, Senator Steve Conway, Representative Mary Levitt, Representative Dan Bernowski, Representative Melanie Morgan, and Representative Steve Kirby for their outstanding service, dedication, and commitment to the residents of Lakewood, and urge all residents to join us in extending our appreciation for their public service, proclaimed this 13th day of June, 2022, signed Jason Whalen, Mayor, Deputy Mayor Moss, Council members Mike Brandstetter, Linda Farmer, Don Anderson, Patty Bell, and Paul Boke. Thank you. And at this time, it's my pleasure to offer the floor to you guys because we want to hear from you. If there's something that we can do to make your jobs easier, that can help you, we're welcome to do that. So the floor is yours.
I was going to say, go for it, Steve. Representative Kirby. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor and members of the council. It truly is an honor to be here, but it's more importantly an honor to do this work and serve in the legislature and serve people across the 28th District, but also the people of the city of Lakewood. Really what it comes down to, though, is a collaboration and a good working partnership between the state and between the city of Lakewood and other partners to make sure that the people that we serve get the best service. So I'd like to thank and extend my gratitude to all of you on the city council as well, and certainly your government affairs staff that work collaboratively with us in the legislature to make sure that we continue to do good things on behalf of people all across the state of Washington, to include the people of the city of Lakewood. And with that, I will close, but thank you so much for having us here tonight. It means a lot.
Thank you. Mr. Kirby.
Does that work? I'm going to just start talking whether this works or not. How
There you
about
go.
that? I appreciate the offer, but I've taken it upon myself to make my job easier. I've done this meeting, I don't even know how many times, since Lakewood was, became a part of the 29th district. But unfortunately, in the last redistricting, I lost my top best precincts that were in Lakewood to redistricting. And so that was the thing that put it over the top. You know, and aside from the fact that after COVID, my wife and I got a chance to actually live together nonstop for 2 years, and she never did kill me in my sleep. So we decided that this is as good a time as any for me to retire. I am finishing both of my jobs at the end of the year. So this is my last one of these. I want to thank you all for probably having just one of the best run cities that I've had the pleasure of working with. And I've worked with a lot in 22 years in the legislature. And you guys, you folks do a great job. And it makes it easy for us to help you. And so, you know, that's what you've done, is just keep doing what you're doing, and we'll keep doing what we're doing. These are great folks.
Yes.
I'm being replaced by a great person. Everything's going to be fine. But this is my last thank you to the city of Lakewood. Really appreciate it.
To that, I will say there are a lot of committees that I can use your help on around the city of Lakewood, so you don't get away too far, if you choose to.
Well, it's great to be here with you again. You know, I can't say how important this recognition has been in the time I've been in Olympia. You know, we have very few, we represent several county and city councils, but I don't know any city council which has gone out of its way to thank us for what we do in Olympia. And I can only say, really appreciate what you do. I want to tell you that you have one of the most effective lobbyists in Shelley Helder, that I really believe that she is the reason why that list of accomplishments occurred. Your investment with Shelley is so magnificent because she does her job. She bird dogs bills and budgets and makes sure that your interests are our interests. You know, it's not easy in Olympia when you're trying to serve, you know, what is 150,000 people in several different school districts and city councils and county councils. But I can say to you here that Shelley and I worked on a bill last session that we didn't quite get passed for the South Sound military people, but it's a bill that we plan to get next year and fulfill that obligation that we made in terms of trying to find a budget that addresses one of your major clients, JBLM. I mean, frankly, this district has JBLM as its major employer and a major need. And so I thank you once again. I thank you for all your service as well. You know, I think Lakewood to me is, as I drive through Lakewood, I see that you're managing your city in a very effective manner. You'll see the homeless encampments. See in Seattle, I see us it's really being managed well. And I want to thank you for your work because it makes my job easier as well. So thank you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
And I'll echo what all have said and just add a thank you for the kind invitation to be here and the opportunity to partner with you. We really have appreciated as issues that are important to you, we've worked on together, and that you've shown up when we've asked you to, because we need you to talk to our colleagues about why particular issues are important to our district and why they've been important to Lakewood. And you all have led those voices. I also really appreciate the collaboration on issues of veterans and housing, and your infusion of late for human services in the capital side as well, and working with community partners, because we need each other, and we're very grateful to have wonderful partners in all of you. So thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank you for your service.
Thank you so much. From my colleagues, any comments? Remarks, Mr. Branstetter?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I want to appreciate the four of you being here, and as was said, we've done this pretty consistently because the relationship has been very strong. And one of the reasons why we're doing so well as a city is that we've been successful working with those of you in the legislature, where you've done some things that have enabled us to do well. You know, and sometimes you get to where you take things for granted, okay? And I, when I talk to my peers from other cities and councils and towns around, and that they don't all speak so highly of their relationship with their their legislators, that you know, they say, well, we ask for things, but that's it. And I really appreciate the fact that all of you, if we have something that we would going to have as a priority, you ask us the questions that show that you're really interested in understanding what it is and why we want, and so that enables you to do that, rather than just nodded and moving on. I you know, I just really hope that we as a council and the legislative team that we'll have in the 28th and 29th, you know, continue to be patient on both sides, to listen to each other, okay, and to ask those questions so that we really understand what the needs of citizens and residents are, and what the options are for being able to make the region better and the city better. So I've really been, I think, considering myself fortunate to have this team in Olympia working with us, okay? You know, I would hope that perhaps some of the other communities around here might learn something from our relationship. At least, you know, since we've got plenty of regional problems, not just city problems.
Mr. Anderson?
Well, it's always a pleasure to get together. I want to thank you for showing the repeated commitment to show up and to communicate with us, because that's, I think, why we have had the opportunity to be successful, is that we have the opportunity to tell you in advance what we're interested in, what our problems in our community are, help you find out better ways to represent your constituents and do some homework for you. And so it's not a surprise. We're not the people that come and knock on your door when the legislative session starts and say, hey, we need $10 million for X. We tell you we want $20 million and we work on it years in advance. But that being said, I'd like to say a special thank you to Representative Kirby. It's been a pleasure getting to know you over the last 15 years or so. Mount Tacoma class of 70. I'm 1 year behind you. And I have the same phase out plans, I can assure you. Thanks so much for your dedicated years of service and having the attitude that legislators should have with respect to their colleagues and constituents. It's always a pleasure to get together with you and enjoy your sense of humor and your insights. So thanks again for all you've done.
Councilmember Boki.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Moss. Yeah, just thank you very much. And really, and Mike touched on it, the tangible things that this delegation has done really through the years. I think of improvements at Springbrook Park in a very economically needy neighborhood. Some major expansions. You were there for the bridge when we did the ribbon cutting on the bridge, and just what that means to that community. And you talk about Fort Steilacoom Park and a lot of the improvements there, as well as the Colonial Center, which is a big deal for us and is just now kind of coming to fruition. And yeah, thank you for your service, Representative. I hope a well-deserved retirement. Keeping two jobs and the legislative job over the years has just become more and more complicated and bigger and bigger, as all of you know, right? It takes a lot of time and energy and to keep two jobs going for all these years. Thank you. Representative Levitt mentioned housing, and we have been having major discussions about housing, and hopefully we can coalesce around with the use of SHAPE, which is our local group, I think, that will lead on that. We can maybe get some veterans housing done in the next few years. So we look forward to working with you all and getting these tangible things done. So thank you very much. I think you can go around town and, like Senator Conway mentioned, and see real tangible fruits of your labors. Thank you.
Councilmember Farmer.
I will echo what everybody else has said with big thank yous. And I remember a constituent meeting that Representative Levitt had early on, and some residents were saying, well, what have you done for us lately? You haven't done much. And she came with a list, and there was a lot of money. There were a lot of major projects on that list. They were things that benefit residents every day. They were parks and roads and sewer projects and that sort of thing. And so you guys have you've partnered with us. We've been able to partner with you in bringing home the bacon, so to speak, and really helping Lakewood live, work, and play. And that's been wonderful. I have been particularly proud of the work that we've done with the Sex Offender Policy Board, and just really taking those beginning baby steps toward the geographical equity in the release of the offenders that we're looking for. And so thank you for being there in the, I hope it's not going to be a long trip, but thank you.
Councilmember Bell.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I'm new here, and so I don't know really any of you very well. I've met, I think, Maria and Dan, representatives briefly before, and I'm sorry that I won't get to know you very well at all, but hopefully I will get to see you outside of this, Representative Kirby. So I look forward to that. So what I've heard from my colleagues and what I've heard as soon as I got onto council was that our reps were amazing. Who we have working for us at Olympia are amazing. So thank you for all that you do. I appreciate it. I look forward to building the relationships with you and getting to know all of you a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you. I know Mr. Mayor was on the line. I don't know if he's still there. If you'd like.
Yes, I am.
You're behind me.
Yeah. Yes, I apologize for not being there. We're on a family vacation out of town, but I felt strongly that I wanted to extend my appreciation to you. So I pulled myself out of my shorts at the pool here to get dressed up and extend my heartfelt thank you to all of the work you've done for us over the years, especially this last session. A special thank you to Representative Kirby. We've been well served by your work in the legislature on behalf of your constituents in Lakewood here in the 29th. And we really appreciate it. So I know we've got a lot of work to do in the next session. We look forward to the engagement and the continued progress working collaboratively together. So I just wanted to thank you tonight and appear for that reason, and I wish you well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Ms. Representative Kirby, thank you so much for all you've done for Lakewood. And we do appreciate you. We're gonna miss you. So we'll find someone else to make sure that they're here at every meeting that we have. You won't be far. Thank you. And I want to say thank you to all of you that come out to the events that the city put on. They give you an opportunity to see how well we do try to manage the funds that you provide for us. So thank you. We do have an event coming up Saturday from 4 to 8:30 at the Colonial Center. And it's a Carnival of Cultures. So if you have an opportunity, please come out and join us, have some fun. See your work, your monies and works going. So if that's all for now, I will just invite you guys to have a picture taken with us. We can do that. And we'd like Shelley to come.
Well, it's a good thing I shaved you.
I know.
Go ahead and do the school. Otherwise, I would just. All right, I'll do it. I'll let's be together right here. Okay. All right, so step forward just slightly. Sorry. All right, looking right here, everybody. 1, 2. Could you take one with Shelley? Thank you so much. Yeah.
We all know, all we have to do is look at the gallery and find show. This means yes, this means no. Well, thank you. I got elected to city council in Tacoma for 45 years.
Oh, my gosh.
Is that when we started?
Wow. 50? You look good. I was gonna say, you look good.
I don't know.
Appreciate it. See you next time. Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, thank you. I make sure I wear heels on photo day. Because you guys are also. Yes, I wear free.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. Moving on. At this point, we're going to offer up Economic Development Manager Becky Newton to come forward and give us a presentation.
It's not in a little folder.
Ms. Newton, you've always given us good, look forward to your updates to see what's happening new in our city. So welcome.
Where's the other TV?
Oh, we got it here.
I'll just look at it on here. You have to look at it. This way.
No, I can't. My neck doesn't crane anymore.
No, there's no painting.
Okay, good evening, Deputy Mayor Moss and members of council. I'm here this evening to talk to you about the economic development strategy.
Thank you.
The economic development strategy was developed and informed by state, regional, county, and city planning documents and policies, as well as the City Council 30th anniversary vision, comprehensive plan, and the city budget, as well as the community and economic development work plan. The framework is, or for the plan, has a focus on alignment with the City Council goals for economic development. The purpose of the strategy is to advance goal number 1 of the city's strategic plan, align efforts across departments, and guide the work and also measure performance of the plan. The objectives this evening for the presentation is to provide council with an overview of the plan, provide an opportunity for comment and gain feedback, and work towards finalization and adoption of the plan. In 2019, Ms. Tiffany Spear and I put together the framework for the plan. I wrote the plan back then, and at that time, we also incorporated some matrix that involved workforce information and retail leakage and other data provided by Brook and Associates. And then I added as well an implementation plan, budget, and action items, as well as performance measures. The plan was originally reviewed by City Council in 2019 prior to adding the action items and implementation plan. Since then, we took a little bit of a departure from the plan, not that we weren't still doing the work, but we had some priorities due to the pandemic. We picked it back up in 2021 and also engaged Brook in 2022. In addition to that, the plan has been reviewed by city executive leadership team, as well as the Planning Commission, Arts Commission, Youth Council, and the Parks and Recreation Board. And all of their input and comments have been incorporated into the current draft that you have before you tonight. Let's see, next, please. This is the City Council vision for 30-year anniversary. Calling to your attention the third bullet, sustained by robust economic growth and job creation. Next. Goal number 1, the city promotes and supports a dynamic and robust local economy, the components of which are an adaptive and growing economy, diversified and resilient economy, as well as one that supports local businesses and residents. Next slide. 1.1, aligning goals and resources. We want to attract and preserve family wage and high wage jobs, review prudent incentives that support business and community, and direct growth through sound planning, with a focus on wealth generation and encouraging desirable development in our focus areas. Next, please. Goal part 1.2 is to pursue infrastructure improvements. I want to mention that if not for the tremendous effort, the work on infrastructure improvements over the years development would not be able to occur. And the continued improvements is very important for development and redevelopment of Lakewood. Here we focus on advanced planning and attracting investment, looking at placemaking for the community and quality of life. Next. 1.3 focuses on quality, diversified housing for multi-generational community assets, looking at policies and programs that increase home ownership and preserve existing housing. With a continued support of youth and also senior programs, as well as preserving historical, cultural, and ecological places of significance. The focus here is to provide affordable options for all residents and attract middle-income households, and to also encourage a range of housing types. Next, please. 1.4, key partnerships and collaboration is also very important. We want to be a leader in economic development and to continue to build and add and expand those partnerships, and also to develop an educated workforce. The focus here is on alignment and building those partnerships and leveraging opportunities as well with JBLM. Next slide. And then finally, 1.5, to promote and facilitate sustainable development. And this involves business creation, attraction, retention, and expansion, promotion of entrepreneurialism and growing industries, and supporting businesses that the community needs. Next. So we also look at a lot of data to guide us in our work and what we're calling the market context, components of which we look at here. Employment is one component. Okay, sorry. Next. Yeah, sorry. Okay, employment. Lakewood has an average increase employment from 2012 to 2020 of 3.1%. This does not include all the workers, which means employment is covered by that employment that is covered by unemployment insurance. Growth is led by construction, manufacturing, and warehousing, transportation, and utilities, as well as government. And we've had an average growth of 3.1% per year, as compared to 2.7% in the county overall. Next, please. Overall, we've had an increase of about 23% in employment since 2012, which has outpaced Tacoma and the county overall. Next, please. We do have a higher proportion of employment in government due to Western State Hospital, and keep in mind the schools as well as DSHS offices, for example. Next. We look at journey to work as well. Where people live and work is important. About 3,800 people live and work in Lakewood. About 25,000 are employed in Lakewood but live elsewhere. And whereas about 20,000 live in Lakewood and work elsewhere. 13% work and live in Lakewood, which is lower than Tacoma, but higher than Puyallup and Fife. Next, please. Another area that we look at is retail leakage by industry. It's helpful to look at that in the region to know if we're meeting the needs of our residents. It's simply due to our location here in Lakewood. We're able to enjoy some people coming in to Lakewood to purchase goods and services. And if you look at the retail poll for Lakewood over time, it has increased, which suggests that Lakewood is becoming more of a retail center, even more so for restaurants. Next, please. Surely due to our position here in the region, our proximity to JBLM and the Port of Tacoma, as well as being right on I-5 and connections to major transportation connections for trucking and so forth, makes us an ideal location for many businesses and for investment. Next. So getting into the strategies that we look at. So we have two distinct strategies. One is citywide, and the next would be focus areas. Citywide strategies include business retention and expansion. We do a lot of outreach to our businesses here locally to identify barriers and opportunities, provide resources, and help the city to be adaptive and responsive to the needs of our community. We also work on media and promotion, building our brand, such as the Build Your Better Here campaign, Nearcation, and so forth. Social media, produced articles, op-eds, newsletters, and coordinating messaging with other agencies is important, including JBLM. Next, please. And then getting into our focus areas, this is just a map of all the different areas that we are focusing on for development and redevelopment. Next slide. When you look at all the focus areas, there are key elements that we look at for each of the areas, which are to facilitate redevelopment efforts by supporting property owners, developers, and contractors, supporting our city staff, planning and policy efforts, as well as reviewing incentives, grants, and so forth that help us move forward, enhancing and growing our partnerships, supporting the needed infrastructure improvements that I mentioned earlier, and also working collaboratively across departments. For the downtown specifically, it is designated as a regional growth center by the Puget Sound Regional Council. In October of 2018, the council adopted the downtown plan. There is planned infrastructure, including open space, housing, mixed use, a downtown library, and importantly, looking at placemaking, culture, arts, experiences, restaurants, retail, and so forth to for our community and for those that come and visit Lakewood. Next, please. Another focus area is the Lakewood Station District. And this is an area where we coordinate infrastructure improvements for mixed use, transit-oriented development in areas surrounding the Sounder Station and on the potentially moving WashDOT to another location and making opportunity for redevelopment on Pacific Highway. Some of the action items included and focus are, as I mentioned, the adopted plan, Lakewood Landing and redevelopment of the WashDOT property, and also what we're calling a Lakewood Station TOD redevelopment, which is about a 10-acre redevelopment on the other side of the tracks. Next, please. Lakeview Kendrick is overlapping the Lakewood Station District. I call that out because it is an opportunity zone, which affords for tax incentives for investors in both real property and projects. And we look at underutilized properties that are ripe for development in that area. And as I mentioned, there's a 10-acre redevelopment mixed use potential for that area. Next, please. The next area I'll touch on is the International District, implementing streetscape improvements and placemaking. It's a culturally diverse commercial district with about 88% minority-owned businesses in the area, a lot of grocery, office, retail, restaurants, and so forth. Designating that as a special place is important Commerce comes in from all over the state for the international district. And in reaching out to the folks there, they're very interested in ways that we can provide other things like signage, art, and baskets to improve the experience in the area, and consider adding it some residential in the future as we look at other opportunities. Next, please. North Clear Zone. Supporting Joint Base Lewis McChord is incredibly important. And there has been over the years, as all of you know, encroachment on the base and businesses that are operating in the North Clear Zone. City has a contract to purchase properties and help to relocate those businesses elsewhere, hopefully in Lakewood. So as I mentioned, supporting JBLM mission readiness is important, and especially securing matching funds so that we can perform those acquisitions and relocations and help to keep those businesses here in Lakewood. Next, please. Next area I'll touch on is Springbrook. A city has invested a considerable amount of money into infrastructure, utilities, and so forth, as has the Lakewood Water District. There are a mix of uses and expanded industrial. It is also an opportunity zone, and there's a mix of uses, as I mentioned, and it's important for us to also address the floodplain issue and environmental that currently exists in Springbrook. Next, please. Tillicum. Again, the city has invested a considerable amount of money in infrastructure, sewer, streets, and public safety. And I'll call out the Tillicum neighborhood plan that was adopted in 2011. And we've looked at that recently for potential changes. Also an opportunity zone. Habitat for Humanity has been a partner for many years. Tillicum neighborhood plan, as I mentioned, and it is a center of local importance and potential for a branch library or an updated branch library. Next, please. Woodbrook, I'm sure you've been out to Woodbrook lately. There is a considerable amount of development occurring in the Woodbrook Business Park and continues to develop. So supporting that industrial development and ensuring that we encourage uses that will be beneficial for the city and the community going forward. Best long-term uses for the area is important. Again, another opportunity zone, and evaluating zoning as we go along will be important to maximize light industrial and manufacturing uses. Next, please. And then Lake City, as there's an opportunity for additional support of retail and services. And that area is, of course, around American Lake. And to support the residents that live out there, we feel like we have the opportunity to enhance that business district. Next, please. And as I mentioned, we added an implementation plan, budget, and ways that we can measure the success. So the action items you see in the actual plan include ongoing, near term for 22 to 23, as well as midterm from 24 to 25. We have concentrate on dedicated staff, consulting, and high-level data analysis to support our work, infrastructure and environmental considerations, and consider the opportunity fund that was adopted several months ago, which we have an opportunity to develop as well and provide funds to provide gap funding for businesses that are looking to expand. And then milestones and performance measures will be very important for us to measure our performance on the plan. Next, please. Just some additional comments from folks that I've spoken to and committee members, ensure equitable economic development across factors such as race, ethnicity, gender, income, and educational attainment. Also, Lakewood should pay attention to traffic infrastructure needs, congestion, and traffic flow. And then a data and statistical analysis is very helpful to residents and business owners. And with that, that concludes my presentation to you this evening. I'd be happy to take comments and questions.
Okay, thank you so much. And then anyone would have comments, Mr. Anderson, please. This is it.
Absolutely. Thank you, council member. We have had a gentleman that has been assembling property for several years now, about 10 to 12 acres for redevelopment. The plan was to do mixed use and or a multifamily project. Especially the pandemic, during the pandemic, the two types of projects that were or deals that were being done were either residential, particularly multifamily, as well as industrial. So those kind of are the top of the list. So as you all know, there is a lack of housing. There's a need for more housing, potentially price restricted housing, and different types of housing. So we have a lot of interest from a number of multifamily developers who've kind of come and gone over the project. And so we feel like this particular project will be very successful. It's just a matter of who the developers will end up being on the Lakewood Station TOD. Is it? Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, the plan looks like a mixture of multifamily and townhomes with a park block. And there's also been some talk of adding a little bit of mixed use, maybe a coffee shop, something like that, but primarily multifamily, townhomes, and a park block. Well, it is a big lift. I would say that I think because of the location, it's not an ideal location for a public works facility. It's not the highest and best use. If there's a way for us to help or find a way to finance a new facility for WashDOT and help them to relocate, I think it's worth some effort to continue that. However, given what the market is looking like right now for Pacific Highway, looking more to a retail, potentially e-commerce type of a situation, I think more strategy and review of that property needs to be done because, as I mentioned, it is a big lift. And we've put a lot of effort into it already. And so I hesitate to just drop it, but I think it's something we should continue to talk about.
I always thought of a famous quote from attributed to Elihu Root, who was a Secretary of State and just about everything else in his time. And he said half the business of any good lawyer is telling his prospective clients that they're a damn fool and should stop. And I'm kind of getting that feeling about the Lakewood Landing project. If we put a lot of time and effort into it, and it's going to be apartments or a warehouse. I mean, we don't seem to have a lot of influence on it. And so in our economic development plan, I don't know that it's got its infrastructure there, and we encourage people to assemble property and redevelop, but we don't seem to have any influence over what it will become and whether it's worth our time and effort to go down that path as opposed to just encouraging assembly and some tax incentives for redevelopment. It's kind of my primary question. I have some maybe easier ones. The International District, you mentioned housing. Its unique character is ethnic businesses. That was what makes it an attraction. Also has some great taste and smells. How does housing fit into that?
The reason why we've brought that up we've talking to some of the property owners, in particular, Buhan has excess capacity, and we've been asked if it's a potential to add housing because that is an interest of some of the ownership out in that area.
Would that entail a zoning change? I know he
It
owns a
will-
bunch of property, the bowling alley and what was a holding lot for mobile homes or something at one time.
Yes, Councilmember Anderson, yes, it would require a zoning change.
That's it for now. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? Councilmember Boki?
Thank you for the presentation, Becky. We all know, warehouses are everybody's looking for warehouse space, I guess, or building warehouses, although that may be starting to come to a close. We see this employment growth. What is going on that maybe we haven't talked about that people are interested in coming to Lakewood for?
Other than warehousing and, there is an interest in additional restaurants. We're seeing a lot of incoming for different types of restaurants. In addition to housing, warehousing, there is an opportunity to try to attract more manufacturing to the area. And that's why I mentioned really being careful with our zoning in our industrial areas to ensure that we allow the opportunity for manufacturing, those makers, those folks that are actually going to be making things here in Lakewood. And as I mentioned, the restaurants is a big one. There's quite a few restaurateurs that are looking to come into the area. And then experiences. So as you know, Catapult indoor trampoline center for families. So other types of uses that would be more experiential, cultural types of businesses. We do have now a new business, which you probably have seen, that has art and like wine tasting while you're doing art. So I feel like there's more opportunity for those types of businesses, as well as brew pubs, bottle shops, those types of, that's something that is lacking. And I wouldn't say lacking, but we could definitely draw more people into Lakewood for those items and related, anything that would draw people in to create more vibrancy for the town center and colonial center, that area. So cultural, some of the things that we're doing in parks and recreation in terms of events is helping to draw more folks also to the Lakewood area. So when they do come in, what types of local shops, unique local shops can we add? Who is it that is here locally, business owners that may be working or having their businesses outside that may open a business, experiential business, a brew pub, an arts, some type of an arts center, things like that. So those would be some of my suggestions.
Does the warehouse space that's being built suffice for the interest in manufacturing, or are they looking for something different?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So if I'm a small manufacturer, you said it was an area of opportunity for us. Is the warehouse space being built used for that, or are they not finding the right space?
It could be used for that. It definitely could be used for that. Those are mostly lease for the large businesses, which would obviously require tenant improvements depending on the size of the manufacturer. There's a lack of space for manufacturers right now. Some manufacturers that are trying to come into Lakewood and or expand, or being pushed out of their current spot because the landlord wants something else. And so there's a number of manufacturers that are looking for space. Many of them that I've talked to are square footage wise, 15 to 50,000 square feet in that neighborhood.
Okay. And then you mentioned something when you made that comment earlier about we have to watch our zoning or something for industrial. What does that mean?
Yeah, so anytime you do zoning, you can't, not everything is perfect. So like, for example, in the Woodbrook Business Park, we are encouraging more light industrial, job center, creating employment, manufacturing. So we've had some requests for things like extended container storage or truck parking and those types of uses, which aren't necessarily, I mean, not that it's a bad use, but we want to make sure to have a balance with that and encourage those types of employers that can create jobs, good jobs for our community.
Thank you.
Councilmember Farmer.
I'll start with a very basic question. You talk about opportunity zones, and then there was a mention of opportunity fund opportunities. And
Yeah.
remind me what we're talking about with opportunity zones and opportunity fund.
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Farmer. Opportunity zone is a federally designated tax incentive. Well, it was started in 2017, I believe. And through a competitive process, Lakewood received 3 opportunity zones. Springbrook, Tacoma Woodbrook is one, and then what we call the Lakeview Kendrick area. And it allows for deference of capital gains. So either depending on when you get in on the fund and when you get out, you can have a point basis where you have a reduction in capital gains or maybe completely eliminated. Okay, so that's the opportunity zone. And anyone investing into a fund that invests into an opportunity zone can invest into real property and or projects. So building buildings or just the real estate. Opportunity fund, sorry for the confusion. So many months ago, Ms. Kraus presented to you all an opportunity fund, which would actually be a financial tool to allow us to, we can formulate it how we think would best be advantageous to our businesses. The thought would be to provide gap funding to businesses that are planning on expansion here in Lakewood and adding employment. So it's a financial tool.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
With the increased use of the Motor Avenue Plaza, the Colonial Center area, I'm wondering, remind me, is there, what in our toolbox, to play off of Councilmember Anderson's comment, is there anything in our toolbox that we can pull out now to help pull interest in the Colonial Center? Every time we have a festival there, it just reminds me of the opportunity. But it's not property that we own. And so I'm just curious,
Right.
anything new?
Yeah, I think that the city of Lakewood, I mean, we have the incentives for businesses to locate. Some of it has to do with the property owners that are surrounding the Colonial Center or the Colonial Plaza area. And so I think actively working with the property owners and from the city staff and encouraging them, partnering them with potential tenants that we might like to see come into that area, and encouraging the property owners to be more adaptive and receptive to those uses.
I would be interested in that.
Okay.
And then is there anything new on the QFC property? And that's a question better directed toward the city manager. Let me know.
Oh, Ms. Farmer, would direct that to the city attorney.
I'm sorry, what was that question?
What's the latest on the QFC property?
Oh, the QFC property is set for trial in early January. To date, there has been no meaningful discovery. And we have been talking to our attorney, Adam Rosenberg, to suggest that perhaps having some discovery role might get a little bit of a change out of opposing counsel, because right now everybody's sort of just letting it ride until the trial date. And I don't want to say that that's sometimes what lawyers do, but sometimes you have to put a little heat on them to get it moving. And other than that, there's not been a lot going on with the case, not the litigation piece.
Given the prominence of our amazing festivals that our Parks Department and the city puts on, it's disappointing that we're facing these issues with so little control. I'll just put that out there. Thank you.
Councilmember Branstad.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I appreciate the effort that's gone into preparing what you're presenting to us tonight to be able to go and do. And it looks like it's taken time, so some of the timelines are going to have to be pushed a little to be able to do that. And the implementation strategies we're past some of those dates. But to go back to Councilmember Farmer's thing about the opportunity zones, and we had 3, and we've had 3 for coming up on 5 years. What examples do we have, or that of people actually taking advantage of it, where the opportunities, that you can have all sorts of federal programs and being able to go and do that, but if nobody uses them, they're just something that's on on our marketing plan. As we market the city, we say we have opportunity zones, but if the mechanics of actually using one don't seem to work here, feel kind of odd to do that, given that there are opportunities on zones throughout the Pacific Northwest, and some I think in areas that maybe are more easily leveraged by people who want to go to all the effort to take an opportunity zone. But if we had I haven't heard in any of the reports of any actual development that has taken place because of someone taking advantage of opportunity zone criteria.
Councilmember Branstetter, there are businesses that are investors that have invested and taken advantage of the tax. I don't have that list with me, but I'm happy to put that together for you.
Okay, well, how do we assist someone in doing that? Does the city have a role in assisting someone to do that?
Well, the city's role right now is promotion of the opportunity zones and also directing those investors, property owners, those that would like to invest in an opportunity fund that then invests into the opportunity zone, where you go to do that, where you find the funds, resources in order to do that. That's our role at this point in time.
And you think that that's been benefiting us in a significant way?
Councilmember Branstetter, my opinion is that yes, it doesn't benefit us because it shows that we did go through quite a process to get the opportunity zones, which were approved by the state. And then it also shows that there is this investment opportunity if we are able to advertise it and show investors that there is this opportunity for them to come to Lakewood and have tax incentive advantages. I think it is beneficial.
For a long time, we've been interested in promoting economic development with an outcome of more Lakewood residents would be able to work here, as opposed to having to travel or go somewhere to do that. But the sequence of numbers that seem to be in various places in the plan, in the report, and we're like now we're down at an area of about 13.7, I think is the number of the percentage of Lakewood residents that work in Lakewood. And while we always, I think, expected that most Lakewood residents would move elsewhere, that 13.7 is in the trends a low point. There was a point where it was 20%, and then a point where it was between 15 and 16. At the same time, we've been building things that have jobs, but what it seems to be is that as we've had development, the workers that are coming to work in in Woodbrook and things like that aren't Lakewood residents. The workers are coming from elsewhere, and so we're not moving our poverty line by having better jobs that people who live in Lakewood who have marginal jobs that don't seem to be there. So I guess is that I didn't see in the plan a strategy to try to change that, to have a goal where more Lakewood residents work in Lakewood, and some action strategies to that. Because I think that has always been the vision of consuls going back before I was on the council, to be able to, one of the big things about let's stop being a bedroom community and let's be a community where people can both live and work in the same community. And we don't seem to be making progress there. And there didn't seem to be any specific strategies looking to address that. It was more, if there are more jobs, some people from Lakewood will find them, but maybe or maybe not. So I kind of like to look to see the plan, take a look at that and say, and think about what can we do to do that. And part of that solution may be really focusing on educating, getting younger Lakewood residents or, educated and get some partnerships with those jobs to be able to go and do that. I guess the other thing that just seemed to be not mentioned in the plan was specific. We targeted efforts to attract minority-owned businesses. Well, we know we have quite a few in the international district. I mean, council just invested in helping fund the BIPOC program within the county. Looking for some feedback to say how that's actually helping in our economic development to be able to go and do that and then to build on it. I think as the census shows, we're becoming a majority community. We sort of want to see our business ownership move in that same direction. And so having some strategies that address that would be nice to do that. And then I think that I am somewhat with Councilmember Anderson in that the moving the WashDOT facility and the original vision for Lakewood Landing seems a bridge too far right now. And while we put a lot of effort in, I think those may be sunk costs. And I think that at the same time, we still have great aspirations for mixed-use development and housing development and other things in the downtown plan. And that's become somewhat stagnant. And so I think that the Lakeview Kendrick area, I think is an area that is our efforts are showing fruits of that, and I think that area is going along. But we're in a window to review the downtown plan, and as your plan says, we need to look for having the right mix of incentives to get people to do things in the downtown. I think that there's a place of that, there's some energy to be spent to that, because some of the goals for that, and maybe don't have the right incentives. For a couple of years, we've talked about having a retreat about business incentives and what could we do. And we've never held it. We've just never had that. Never had that retreat to sort of really decide what really is out there that we could do. And I think that if we were to hold that and have a sort of an open discussion of and idea development, brainstorming to be able to do that, we might be able to come up with some things that will make your job easier. That would be the goal, to be able to go and do that. Because we think we have a good number of things that just aren't bearing fruit right now. And I guess then the last thing that wasn't mentioned in either the plan or in your presentation had to do with home businesses. And it seems that during COVID and things, and people working from home and people deciding, well, maybe I can do something from home to be able to go and do that. How can the city encourage or remove barriers to having a home business and becoming an entrepreneur? You know, maybe that's a training thing that we can do. Maybe it's, I don't, you know, there got to be people that can help us try to do that, because we got plenty of smart folks over there, from young people that might want to do that to more elderly people who, you know, finished one career, but maybe are willing to get started with something. If we can come up with a program to help them with that transition. And I guess the other thing is I just found it inconsistent. There were some slides that talked about Lakewood being a really good retail draw. And then I see other data, and even the city manager recently sent out a thing that said the nature of retail is changing in currently at this point in time, and this year our retail sales tax numbers are one of the revenue sources that's down. I think we need to take a look at how we're going to adapt our strategy to attract retail that will be resilient and successful. And so those are just areas that as you're finalizing the plan, because the plan's a working draft, if you look whether there's some adjustments or some new ideas that could be there, or some questions for us, you know, bring them back.
Councilmember Anderson.
Just to follow up on one of Councilmember Brandstedter's comments regarding BIPOC businesses. From the day job, I have pretty intimate familiarity with the business incubator program. Its initial indications are it's been highly successful. The participants in the program are very complimentary. It's a combination of some basic training, connections, and a small amount of capital in certain cases. An example could fit right into the box that you were describing, Councilmember. At the State of the County address, it was catered by a woman who was retired senior enlisted member of the Army. I think she was in the healthcare medical division or something, totally unrelated to her dream of being a caterer. And she had built a small business, and she was starting out, and she was basically 1-2 person business, but didn't know how some of the taxes and the bookkeeping worked, and got expert advice through the incubator program that we contributed in to. One of the byproducts of our contribution and getting on board early was that Lakewood residents have received a disproportionate advantage in the utilization of that program in Pierce County, because not only did we contribute some extra funds, Becky and others helped stand it up here and make the contacts. And so I'm in favor of looking at a way to continue participation in some of that type of program, not only for international business district and BIPOC community, which is obvious just generally, because it really seems to have facilitated and stabilized some of these small organizations just coming out of COVID. And you know, I will always remember my undergraduate business school days looking at the horrific failure statistics, and half of them are just, they don't know what it takes to stay in business long enough to make money. They fail because they have to go to work for somebody else to eat, because they don't have the plan down right, don't know where to get help, can't get capital. So I think there's a real opportunity there. And if we can watch, we have an incubator for government at the same time. It's an incubator for these small programs, but I think it's an incubator where we as the government can watch and see what did we do that really helped these people and fine tune something for the long term. So.
Councilmember Farmer. Playing off that conversation by both of you, I'm curious what COVID has done to at least some of the way that we work. My duty station is in Olympia with my day job, but I have set foot in it like 3 or 4 times over the past 2.5 years. And I don't know how we as a city would track or find out that information, because I'm driving the city streets, I'm having lunch here. And so I'm definitely feel like I'm working in Lakewood. But I don't know if we're able to track that information, or if I don't even know if that's asked on the census, or.
So
What am I asking? I don't know.
Councilmember Farmer, what exactly, what type, you want to know number of businesses that are?
What was I asking? I think I was making more of a comment that
Okay.
I believe we're starting to work differently based on some of the knowledge workers that are working more from home. But I don't know that we have the ability to track that. Is 13%, is that accurate post-COVID? Well, we're not really post-COVID, but.
Well, Councilmember Farmer, I can tell you that we did have a significant uptick in home-based startups the last couple of years. And I believe we may be able to get some of that data through Workforce Central. And so I'm happy to look into that.
Councilmember Anderson.
One statistic you might look at is, I don't know if it's available from other jurisdictions, but look at how our sales tax from restaurants compares to others, both historically and presently, because people going out to eat lunch may have gone down, but you don't eat lunch where you're not working. I mean, it's so people that has been the death of inner city restaurants during COVID, is that office buildings are abandoned and the sandwich shop has no customers. But even though maybe most of those people are eating in the grocery store now, some may be eating in the suburbs and going to Lakewood restaurant instead of downtown Seattle restaurant when they go out to lunch. So might be able to get something based off ratios that give us an indication.
Ms. Newton, I was just curious to know if you have a way of knowing what businesses are taking our citizens out of Lakewood. You might not have.
Council or Deputy Mayor Moss, what businesses are taking specific businesses?
Yeah, if you know.
We can look at
Or
that by
sectors.
industry. However, we wouldn't be able to look at it by specific businesses. So like name a specific business, but we can get an idea by industry, how that works.
Okay.
Yes.
Because that might be helpful to see if we can bring some of those types of workforces into the city. Just a thought. And the other thing you had talked about, restaurants was looking at coming into Lakewood. Do we have any high-end restaurants listed in that group? You don't have to specifically name them, but if there are any.
Well, Deputy Mayor Moss, that depends on your definition of high-end.
Cheesecake Factory. No.
Well, back in the day, we did just make a comment that we did do some analysis that those types of restaurants at that time were better suited for Pacific Highway as proximity to I-5 and other areas. And we did not continue that analysis. However, there is definitely a potential to attract some of those higher end restaurants especially as we build out the downtown. And I will be presenting on a multifamily tax exemption for our first mixed-use project here in the downtown soon. And we're hopeful that others will also trigger, you need that first, a first project that's gonna, the person or developer that gets out there. So I believe that there's definitely an opportunity for us to attract those types
I did
of
notice that there was
businesses.
a lot of activity around the old Black Angus building, so that was moving along.
Yes, Crab Pot Steakhouse.
Crab Pot Steakhouse. Sounds good.
It's not the name, that's just the type.
Oh, but it still sounds good. Anything else from anyone?
Deputy Mayor, it looks like Mayor Whalen has his hand raised.
Thank you. Mayor Whalen?
Thank you very much. Ms. Newton, thank you for the presentation and the plan. I have a few questions and some comments. On the questions, I'm echoing some of the comments of others with regard to making sure that we're properly identifying the best incentives for the market and we're appropriately leveraging those incentives. My concern looking at what we've done with Lakewood Landing is we've spent a hell of a lot of staff time and effort, and we went to the market or the legislature and got tax increment financing as a tool in our tool bag, but I wouldn't consider using it for Lakewood Landing as I understand it's presently configured with regard to warehousing or even local warehousing, whatever the term is. It's really not what we're looking for. And so as we look to utilize incentives, I would be interested in knowing what the development community really is looking for. As Mr. Brandstetter indicated, you mentioned we're possibly going to have our first mixed-use project in the Central Business District, which would be great. I haven't heard of one yet. I haven't seen one. And so I'm hopeful that that is going to take place, but I'm not sure that we're offering the adequate level of incentives. When I'm out in the community, what I hear most often is that people really want that unique, vibrant experience in Lakewood. They want mom and pop type restaurants. You mentioned the bottle shops, the wine shops, all of those kinds of things that create experiences that make a vibrant community even more vibrant, right? So I would hope that we look at the incentive bag of tools that we have and really look at how we can best leverage and bring to market that which we want as a community, right? We've heard a lot about warehousing over the last 6 months. We know we've done good work and we have some warehousing in play, but I think the community wants more than that, obviously. And I think that we want to see more happen in the downtown. I saw many comments, for instance, in the plan about developing the downtown park. I haven't seen anything come to fruition, and I'm not familiar with a plan that has any teeth to it yet that might see such a park or catalyst project in the town center in the next, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years? I don't know. But that was a major focus some time ago. In terms of abandoned properties, the other comment I get most often from folks is the astonishing level of derelict properties in the Central Business District, whether it's the QFC property, the Ken's Tires property, the old movie property that got burned down recently. It's one of those things that one wonders if we can get a little bit more aggressive with meeting with those folks and those owners to incentivize them to redevelop, as opposed to waiting for the quote unquote process to take place. I know that's what we have to do, but sometimes there's an opportunity to use a carrot and not just a stick. So I wonder how the plan might be able to adapt for that as well. In terms of questions, what have we done in terms of acting on leads? Have we had very many leads from the Economic Development Board in the last 24 months that have led to anything productive?
Mayor Whalen, we do continue to get leads. To my knowledge, none of them have actually cited in Lakewood that I'm aware of as of recent.
Contact with the ownership at the Colonial Center. When was the last time we had active contact with someone at the Colonial Center in charge of leasing up the space other than the brokers?
Mayor Whalen, are you referring to the Graymore property?
Exactly.
Okay, it's been a while since I've spoken to them, but I've left a message, but that's one of my priorities is to reach back out to them because that also is a bit of a challenging property in getting their response, as you are aware.
Exactly. And so as we think about the central business district and we're looking to bring in some of these smaller business owners, perhaps BIPOC business owners, I think we have to rethink maybe our transportation fee. If it's an impediment to those people locating downtown, I don't know. I don't know what the BRE or the inquiries are telling us in terms of what incentives they're looking for and what costs and fees might be disincentives. But on the BREs that have been conducted over the last year, what feedback are you getting from the business owners on the issues of crime and criminal activity and how they've impacted their business operations?
Mayor Whalen, we do frequently, as of recent, do get feedback from our businesses on concern over homelessness, encampments, vagrancy, those types of things. So the feedback has been, none have said that it has caused them to lose business. However, the ones that I've spoken to, however, it's something that is on their mind because it comes up over and over again, and they are concerned about it in terms of folks being around their businesses, and as well as the perception here and the future of Lakewood. So it's definitely has been on the minds of the businesses.
Are they asking us for any particular assistance or additional emphasis that we might learn from?
Mayor Whalen, no, we do obviously relay to them to go to my Lakewood 311 to report those. Specifically, when we do hear about them, specifically, I do reach out to our code enforcement folks as well, so they are aware. And so those are some of the things that we do as staff. They have not specifically asked us to do any particular code enforcement or actions.
Okay. Very good. Those are the questions and comments I had. Again, I think we're doing, pretty good work. Our economic numbers show positive trends, but I would give us a B in overall impact in the last couple of years, not because of your planning effort, but just because I think we got to get intentional on developing that which we want in the town center and elsewhere. So that's my thought.
Anything from anyone else? Thank you, Ms. Newton.
Thank you.
Our next presenter will be a review of the Human Service Funding Strategies application process. For that, we have our Park and Recreation Community Service Director, Mary Dodsworth.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Moss and City Council. I'm filling in tonight for Shannon Bennett, who's our Human Services Coordinator. She wasn't able to be here tonight. So I'm just going to get us started, and then I'm going to be excited to introduce Sarah Yamamoto. She is our chair of the Community Services Advisory Board. She's presented here before, and she's going to go over the materials that were provided for you tonight. But just as a start, the city, since incorporation, has done an awful lot to support our more vulnerable citizens. And the Human Services, the 1% fund that the council allocates every 2 years now, has just made tremendous difference in our community. It's a great safety net. We've done an awful lot of homeless prevention. That's, I think, really helped with our homeless population not being what it is because of the human service funds and the different partnerships that have come together for that. So the CSAB and the city have been working together to assess previous systems and processes. The process has changed over the years. It's a very fair and equitable process. It's a rigorous process. It's competitive. We always get a lot more applications and we have funds to share. But it's fair and equitable to those people. We help them have the best application they can. We really try and serve a variety of needs in the community. And then just always looking at what are the needs, what are the gaps, who are the partners, so that we can get the biggest bang for our human service dollar. And I think the city's done that really well over the last many, many years. So I'd like to introduce Sarah. She should be with us on the phone. She's coming in virtually, and she's going to talk a little bit about the process that the Community Services Advisory Board has made to prepare the recommendations that they're giving you tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Good evening, Mayor Whalen, Deputy Mayor Moss, council members. My name is Sarah Yamamoto. I am the Community Services Advisory Board Chair. I grew up in Lakewood, and this is my 4th year on the board. So thank you for this opportunity to meet with you and present our recommendations for human services funding and changes to the application process. Looking over the items in your packet, we'll go over the chart that shows the last 6 years of funding, highlight the currently funded programs and how they support our recommended strategies, then look at the proposed changes to the application documents and a timeline for managing the application process. So the first attachment is on page 118 in the packet. This is a summary of the 20 programs funded with human services funds during the 2021 to 22 budget years. And just a reminder that human services grants have historically funded programs, specific programs, not agencies. So we review the value and benefits associated with each program and compare to other programs in the same strategy category to reward best practices and reduce duplication of services. Each program aligns with one of 5 funding strategies. The first is emotional supports and youth programs, which are direct services for youth and children. Number 2 is access to food, providing or distributing food to Lakewood youth and families in a variety of ways. Number 3, access to health and behavioral health, healthcare and behavioral health services. Number 4 is housing assistance, preventing homelessness in our community. And 5, other crisis stabilization services, making community connections and referrals to advocacy and support groups. And as you know, in 2021, we also recommended doing an RFP for workforce development and youth mental health programs. These are programs 21 and 22 on the chart, and were funded with ARPA funds. So looking at those 5 categories, the board is recommending we continue with the same 5 areas. Do you have any feedback on those strategies or the current list of programs that we funded? Okay, I see a very small view of the screen, but it sounds like no questions on that. So the next documents are the updated application and rating documents starting on page 119. The board reviewed the application materials at our May meeting, discussed the various questions, information we received in the past, and a lot of the changes centered around whether the question was clear or not. So this update is very similar to what we used for the previous biennium. Made a couple of changes to order of questions and wording to make it easier for applicants to understand what the board is asking. One of the most notable differences is that we added examples on some of the questions to clarify what we're asking. And then the rating tool was also updated to match the edits on the application.
We do have one question.
Yes, please.
Councilmember Anderson.
In your rating criteria,
Mhm.
did you consider the scope of the program and the availability of funds for other sources? Because I can see some in here who've literally received millions of dollars in COVID funding, and we're throwing $25,000 at them.
Yeah, so if we look at page 120 in the packet, I think the first 2 questions on there, or the first box, I should say, is where we're trying to get at what you're pointing out. We ask for the program budget, what percentage basically of the program budget will be coming from this city request compared to the total program budget, what ARPA funds they received, other federal funding sources, and then the current annual agency budget. And so that is where we're trying to get a sense of, is this a multi-million-dollar organization? Is this, an organization with $100,000 budget?
Any other question? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the process will be, we will have an applicant workshop as usual to help agencies understand our stated strategies, the questions, the rating tool and process. So every agency has the best chance of submitting a successful application. Looking at the rating sheet specifically, we changed the percentage of Lakewood residents served. That was just we found the wording confusing. But again, trying to make sure that we are supporting programs that are serving mostly Lakewood residents, rather than just a program that happens to be operating in Lakewood. And kind of refined how we're asking about access and outreach efforts, again, trying to ensure that the programs are serving Lakewood residents. I'm looking to see if there are any other notable changes, but I'm wondering if you see anything that you'd like to ask questions about or discuss.
Any questions from anyone? Not at this time.
Okay, yeah, I mean, the application is pretty similar to what we've used last year. So our recommendations then are, one, to use the application and rating sheet as provided to facilitate the Human Services Grant Program. We are looking at a maximum grant of $25,000 per program. That would be the same as what we did in the last biennium. Number 3, returning to a 2-year funding cycle for the 2023 to 24 budget biennium, using the 5 funding strategies we discussed, and then advertising and promoting the grant program to our partners and eligible agencies. So all agencies eligible for funding can apply, and they'll determine which programs they want to request funds for as they fit within our stated requirements and strategies. So do you have any questions about those recommendations or anything we've discussed?
Any questions from me? What's not happening? You want to ask? Did you have a question? Councilmember Branstetter.
Yeah, I had a question, and I don't know whether it's too early to ask it because I'm looking at page 126 of the packet, which is the page of the application that talks about effective practices.
Okay.
And you've added the term specific measurable outcomes, which I guess that I understand. And then you moved the enduring benefits or the benefits to Lakewood and its communities down into the next question. But that seems to eliminate there being a question that was there before about how do you ensure the quality of the program and how do you incorporate client voice, which was the previous 3B wording. Or if you move that down to, another question in 3C. So is 3C a totally added block in the contract?
Yes, exactly. So what was a 2-part 3A and 3B, we just expanded that to add the 3C so that the 3 parts are basically short-term outcomes over the grant period, longer-term community benefits, and then client voice for program quality.
Over the past 2 to 3 years, the concept of client voice, of that has taken on a lot more importance in terms of certain communities being engaged in things that are being done for their benefit. How does the committee envision evaluating the responses to what are very open-ended questions? The questions don't imply that we're looking for anything specific or what we're looking for. And is this a situation where the committee will know what it's looking for when they see it, or if they got something in mind that they're hoping to see in the area of client voice and of the types of benefits to the community?
Thank you. That's a really good question. On the rating sheet under 3C, we just have it broken down into whether the program is client-centered, somewhat demonstrates the program is client-centered, or does not sufficiently demonstrate quality and inclusion of client voice. So it is definitely open-ended as it stands now. I don't think as a board we've discussed specific examples of what we're looking for. So right now it is pretty open-ended to how organizations choose to answer that. But if you have suggestions for refining that question, we could definitely take that back to the board.
I guess I don't know what you're looking for, but I guess have a good idea about what would be unacceptable. There's probably lots of acceptable models, but what kind of a void would make an application be viewed less favorably?
I think when we're talking about client voice there to determine or to help shape quality and strategy, that might look like who is in leadership positions, perhaps for a specific program or for the agency as a whole. That if we see, there's a group from Seattle that ran this program and they're saying it's like, oh, we'd like to extend it to Lakewood, but it doesn't have any Lakewood residents in that planning board, that might be an example of, okay, this is not centered around our clients and who the agency will be serving in this region. So board and leadership definitely plays into that. And just feedback, surveys, evaluation, opportunities for clients to give feedback about how things are or aren't working for them. Does that answer your question?
Well, I guess when I looked at the rating sheet, the application asks about client voice and people to talk about client voice within their program. But the rating sheet asks the committee to decide whether the program is client-centered, which is, to me, is different than client voice.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And it may be that it might be better to help with your rating that if you, rather than asking about client voice, ask them to describe how their program is client-centered. Just to align how you plan to evaluate it with what you expect information you're asking them to give you.
Okay, that makes sense. We can definitely make that change.
Mr. Bradshaw?
That's half answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Moss. Sarah, I'm looking at the 2022 list, and I'm wondering, I mean, we've always, as a council, supported the idea of this, well, whatever ideas really have come out of the committee on categories and the number, and we've also not talked about the $25,000 limit. So I'll pose the question that comes up, at least in my mind, when I see it in different walks in my different, my day job and my night job. Has there been any discussion at the committee level about maybe spreading ourselves too thin on this 1%? With 20 recipients and the $25,000 maximum, have there been any discussions surrounding the idea of maybe going a little bit bigger, but with fewer, to have more impact, but in fewer areas? Is that something that you feel have you guys had any discussions surrounding it? And if not, then is it something that might have some legs?
Thank you. I appreciate the question, and it's definitely something that we have talked about as a board and know that council is thinking about. I would venture to say that if we wanted to make larger grants, basically we need to look at more than the 1% that we're currently allocating of the budget. I mean, I think if we take a look at one of our categories and say, instead of giving 4 different organizations $25,000, we'll give one organization $100,000. That 100,000 is frankly not going to go much farther than a 25,000. You might be talking about funding one staff person for a year. Actually, that would be the 100 over 2 years. So we have thought that the current grant size has been working and pretty stable for our grantees. We would definitely love to consider larger grants that may have a bigger impact, but I don't know that we'd be able to do it within the 1% that we currently have.
Okay, thank you. As a follow-up, and I know this is just a little bit outside the scope of what we're trying to do here tonight, the 2 entities that are receiving the 1% from the ARPA, Career Team and the Clover Park School District, one is Lakewood Thrives, and the other is the Youth Mental Health Coordinator. Could you speak to how those have been going so far?
That is a great question that I will turn over to Mary if she can answer that.
Sure. So we just started working on these contracts. I mean, working with these organizations, so they don't have a long history. The school district was probably quicker than Career Team to implement that program, and it is supporting a counselor. We had a presentation at Lakewood's Promise. He came in and shared kind of what he was planning to do, and the work groups he was working with, the support he was providing, the trainer, youth mental health, what to look for. So that's going to go on for several years. So we're excited about that partnership. And we haven't really gotten any reports back on the data, but we can share that with you as we move along, just because we'll be doing those ARPA quarterly updates anyway, but he was just getting started. And I'm really not sure what he's going to be doing over the summer, but I'm sure it'll be important to prepare for next year. The career team in Lakewood Thrives, that was a continuation of the work that they had done primarily in our more Springbrook, Tacoma, Woodbrook, Monte Vista, and Lakeview areas. And they were doing, again, job fairs, individual support, referral in reference to working with the Springbrook Connections. It's just opened up at the old Center Force building, which might still be the Center Force building, but it's been purchased by somebody. So they're able to have their space there now. So that's a new opportunity. Yeah, it's very exciting. They just opened the doors this week. And so they're doing that work that they had started last year. It's really been a challenge with that group because, we did several fairs last summer and just getting the people out, getting that trust, building that relationship. It takes a while for individuals to see that they're coming back and seeing that those support services are still there. So it's just starting and we don't have a lot of data regarding how that's worked because it hasn't been a full year. They've really, I think, just done about a quarter and a half since the contracts were provided.
Good. Yeah, that's great. I do have one follow-up. The school district one on our sheet on page 118. It says youth mental health coordinator. And 2 blocks over, it says hire full-time career navigator to engage, connect, and provide awareness to Lakewood residents for job training, which you mentioned. So I'm trying to understand the connection between mental health coordinator and career navigator. Oh, you repeated it twice.
Yeah, I think that's a typo.
Is that
I'm
a-
sorry. Yes, absolutely. That's a typo.
It's not the same though.
It's not the same, but it's
They're the-
they're from 2 similar type programs. It looks like they went from the career team previous program to the career team current program. So that's a typo. We can,
Okay,
clarify that. It
okay.
is
So there's
absolutely-
youth
It's-
mental health coordinator
Yeah,
is a
it's
youth
not
mental
focusing
health
on job
coordinator.
readiness,
Okay.
although we have started working with the group that was at the youth summit, who was amazing. I think it's Flow 828 or something like that, but they helped bring all those vendors out. They provided amazing referrals, support. One of our previous youth council members was hired by them. So all the kids were excited to see her. She's in college,
Yeah,
but she
yeah.
came back. So they're really a dynamic partner. And so we really want to look at supporting that throughout the next several years because that's a really good combination of youth mental health support. And then, what's the next step in life? How do you be successful?
Great, thank you.
Mhm. And just to follow up on the spreading ourselves too thin, that conversation comes up every time with the group. Providing, maybe a higher threshold, especially with wages and things that are happening now, if the council wanted to recommend, say, a $35,000 max or something, the board has always said they really appreciate that because of the collaboration and partnerships that we are so fundamentally about in Lakewood. And that if we did maximize the grants without really changing the dollar amount, you're really going to start seeing some of those smaller organizations that we don't typically, or that we support, that we'd start losing some of that partnership, or they can leverage our dollars for other dollars as well. So it's a kind of a balance. So, but if council wanted to see that change in some way, this would be the time to let us know that.
Can you all hear me? I agree with exactly what Mary said and what Sarah said. I think we've looked at the dollar value in detail, and I think $25,000 is probably the most effective amount of money that we can serve. And I don't see any reason to change unless the city council wants to give us like triple what they're giving us now.
Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Farmer.
Wanted to give a shout out to this group. Again, as a liaison to the group for the second year, Ms. Yamamoto and Mr. Lackady and the rest of the team, they ask these tough questions. They've had these conversations. They've agonized over every dollar and every possible way that it can be spent to leverage monies that are already available. Is it a seed project? Is it adding those last few dollars that can get something over the line? Is it doing something innovative? And so they really do, pick up every rock and every stone and twirl it around and really give it some good thought. So my kudos to this team. They're doing a lot of work.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do our best.
I can't see behind me, so if you just cue me when I need to do something like that, because this is awkward. So moving forward.
I'll just follow up that Michael Acadie was on the phone, and we also have Edith here with us, who's been on the board for quite a few years, but they are very committed to this program. And there's a few folks that weren't able to be here tonight, but they all come with different perspectives. They bring up different ideas, and then they talk about it as a group and come up with what they think is best for this next process. Knowing that it's been changing over the years to, last year we added a lot on equity, and they had a big conversation this year on equity about not just equity of participants, but does the program staff, does the board representing this organization represent the, look like the clients that they're serving? So some of those things that are new and different ways of defining or rating organizations. And, the city has a strong policy regarding that. And this could just be one more step to show that we are serious about implementing that in our community.
So I got one more thing to say. First off, Sarah's doing a great job, and you're going to get the best product that a group of your community volunteers can provide.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from the council?
I was just going to say, it's okay. I had the opportunity to speak to somebody downtown who works with sexually exploring kids. And I said, well, tell me, do these kids come from like far away downtown Tacoma? Because that's been our concern. And she said, oh my, yes, we have those kids. They come and they are so happy that they can be taken into our arms. And I said, your arms? And she said, yes, we just take them in. And I said, that's all I needed to know. Because we've had some of those questions have come up because we do fun, downtown Tacoma for Lakewood kids.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, absolutely. It was cool, very cool.
Do you know how many Lakewood kids are involved in this?
I don't know specifically. I didn't ask her for specific numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, it would be risky, I think, to guess.
We can provide that for you. That's the Oasis Center. And the exciting part is that they are opening a satellite program in Lakewood this year. So that's very exciting that the kids that have been participating won't have to travel to Tacoma. They can do it close to home. So
Great. Anything further?
Well, that concludes our presentation. So if there are no further comments. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Well, thank you for the presentation, and we look forward to what happens next.
Okay,
As
thank
the
you.
mayor always say that your pay grade is increasing.
yeah, that's great. We will do the applicant workshop. We will provide examples so that people really kind of clearly understand what kind of questions we're asking and how they might answer it, so that everybody has the absolute best application to make their, to put their project or their program into the mix. So
Great. Thank you.
it starts in January, December, July.
Okay, you can take a look at the tentative schedule for June 21st. That should be interesting. And we're moving on by reports by the city manager. Mr. Caulfield.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor, council members. A few updates for you. Actually, thanks to Councilmember Boki, we learned earlier today that the federal funding coming through PSRC down to PCRC that was then ranked by TCC. That's a lot, isn't it? But I know you know what all those acronyms mean. So, so they have they're making their recommendation to PCRC later this month on those funding requests. And overall, there was $75 million in funding requests. However, there's only $25 million available. 21 projects are being recommended to be funded, including one of the 5 from Lakewood. It's one of our overlay projects, 1/12 that runs from South Tacoma Way over to Steel Street, which is right across the North Clear Zone. You might remember from a couple of weeks ago, or actually last week, that was an additive bid as part of the pavement patching program. But we said it's likely that it's going to get funded, so it did get funded. The one project that came close and is number 1 on the contingency list is our South Tacoma Way project from 88th to 80th. However, it is likely that that is going to receive federal funding if the, I still call the earmark program, does move forward. That is a project that has been sponsored by Congresswoman Strickland. We did learn from Senator Murray's office last week, even though neither her nor Senator Cantwell have sponsored that project, their perspective is there's no need to because it's in on the House side. So when it comes over to the Senate, they will move it along. And so the goal in Washington State is to try and get as many projects funded as possible. So it is looking good that we will be able to receive some different federal funding, but just in a different manner. Just for situational awareness, on this Wednesday, June 15th, is the Cascadia Rising 2022 exercise. And so the city of Lakewood is a member of the West Pierce Emergency Management Coalition, which includes City of Lakewood, as well as West Pierce Fire and Rescue, and now University Place in Steilacoom. So we'll be all participating in that exercise, and begins around 8 in the morning, goes to about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So again, just wanted to make you aware of that. It's just another way for us to be able to test our systems no matter what the emergency is. And actually, we had a bit of a tabletop exercise a couple of weeks ago for about a 4-hour period to prepare for this. The farmer, I think you're probably aware, the farmers market was a huge success last Tuesday. Just some numbers, the vendors reported $59,000 in total revenue, which is greater than the 48,000+ that they had on the first day of last year's market, which was record breaking because the previous record was in 2020 when it was 23,000, and it kind of goes down from there. They estimated that over 5,000 people attended that market between 2 and 7 p.m. And the number of vendors has increased. There's 77 vendors, including 20 food trucks and other, actually 20 food trucks. And most of the vendors actually ran out of product and goods and such. So overall, it was huge success. And I just want to, recognize Sally Martinez and her team for a wonderful job there.
Great.
Yeah, I think as this body knows, fireworks are only allowed to be discharged on July 4th this year, Independence Day, and actually legal fireworks. So fireworks that come from other places are now not allowed. So we've been working with the fire district to initiate some messaging on that, including a brochure that we have that we're going to be moving forward on social media, as well as doing a mailer to all households here in Lakewood in the next couple of weeks, as well as the fireworks stands will also have that notice, just to remind people that fireworks can only be discharged on July 4th or Independence Day. We'll also have some extra officers out on both the 3rd and the 5th, just to remind people that that is not the time to be firing off fireworks. Save it for July 4th. As we speak right now, the area on Gravity Lake Drive between Pacific Highway South and Nyanza is getting its final lift. So the weather did hold out. So the subcontractor is out doing that. It looks like the area over by Washington and Interlochen will remain as is. And because the same contractor that has phase 1 has phase 2, And so they want to leave it as it is as they marry up the final phase 2 projects as that moves from west to east. Also, that project is actually several months ahead of schedule, by the way, just to let you know. So the contractor has really moved very quickly in getting that project done. Still a bunch of punch list items, but overall, it's come together quite nicely. As I mentioned, the farmer's market again this Tuesday, and then I think earlier somebody mentioned, actually the deputy mayor mentioned, this Saturday is the second of our 4 Saturday street festivals, and the theme this Saturday will be Carnival of Cultures, and that's from 4 to 8:30 p.m. over at on Motor Ave, the Colonial Plaza, as we call it. So with that, Deputy Mayor, that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager. Are there any questions for the City Manager? Did a good job. They don't have any questions. Thank you. So with that, we'll have council comments. And we'll start with Mr. Branstetter.
Yeah, Mr. Deputy Mayor, that's fine. Next week, I'm going to attend the AWC annual meeting in Vancouver. And so that means that next Tuesday evening, if the technology is available to me, I'll be joining you virtually. Be down there to be able to go and do that. This Friday, I'm planning to do a tour of the emergency food network facilities that are here in Lakewood, to both take a look at what they have, how they're operating now, and I'm sure to hear a presentation about their capital plans for expanding, to be able to go and do that. So I'm looking forward to that, because I do think that's a really vital link in the whole process of providing food through food banks, to be able to go and do that. And that's all I have, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Boki?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Moss. Just a couple of things that was mentioned. I just sent you all the PCRC agenda for Thursday night. Hopefully the mayor can attend virtually. I'm not sure. We're actually voting on the transportation package that the city manager mentioned, and you can see the score sheets are kind of towards the back. It's a long agenda. I'm not quite sure why. And then the population goals, which will set us for a goal for 2044 of 86,792 people, 36,713 households, and 39,735 jobs. But it's that population figure that's the important one. And we'll have a lot of discussions surrounding that. There's also another planning commission meeting this Wednesday. Planning commission is meeting almost every week now, practically, it seems like, trying to deal with, I think they just voted on the comp plan amendments, and those will be before us. I don't know that there's any huge things going on there, any surprises, but they are wading through, and I think that would be the right word, wading through the tree retention ordinance. So not sure when we'll see that, but there's a lot of facets to it and a lot of things going on with that. So that work continues. And I don't want to complain, but I actually do want to complain. I'm following along all this stuff with the library, and I'm out working in the yard yesterday, and I'm thinking to myself, in the United States of America, how many cities with 60,000 people in it do not have a public library. And you know, I think sometimes in the Northwest, we're very smug about other places in the country, especially the South. And I would guess that you would have a difficult time finding a city of 60,000 people anywhere in the country, let alone Mississippi or West Virginia, that doesn't have a public library. And I'm just incredulous that the library board closed that facility without knowing where they were going to go. And I'm just, we're paying in to this system that we are not getting a benefit from. And I don't know what actions we can take, but I'm just, it's ludicrous to me what we're going through. When we're sitting here now with the building closed and they don't have a plan. When's this temporary library going to open? So I'm just getting it off my chest, but I really do think this is a very, to me, it's depressing because I feel like we're getting kicked in the shins, and it's an equity thing. And, you know, they have libraries open in other communities in this county, but they do not have a library open in the city of Lakewood. And it's an equity argument, and I want to know why, and I want to know what they're going to do to fix it. And I don't want to get in a debate about the building. I want to know when we're going to have a library. And I find it just incredibly disappointing and a real step back for this community and a real failure by the library board. And I even question, not only do I question how they're operating right now, but I even question the makeup of this idea of the district. It's not working for us. So I'll leave it at that and let you guys, and maybe at some point we can talk about some other strategies.
Councilmember Anderson.
Tonight, I briefly attended the school board meeting and gave pretty much a rundown that Mr. Caulfield would give regarding things like streets, and sidewalks, and public safety, farmers markets, and festivals, all the good things we're doing, and the crime stats, and the roundabout. Actually, heard some of the spectators pipe up on safety of the reconstruction. I'm sure in context, I think it was about Interlochen, which is, I just about got T-boned there twice over the last 10 years. And that is such an improvement that alone was worth the project and will save somebody's life along the way. I would like my fellow council members to ruminate on the possibility of having a veterans homeless shelter of some type in Lakewood, and working with a nonprofit such as KWA or the Tacoma Rescue Mission, where we could take on the veterans homelessness because of our proximity, and also have a place for unhoused males primarily to go where they would go somewhere else, and we would take the veterans. You know, it's kind of like the housing mix. Not everybody's suited to doing the same thing. Tacoma's got a concentration of services for individual homeless people. We have a veterans hospital and a concentration of veterans. So and they're different funding sources for that too. So it would be more sustainable for a nonprofit between housing vouchers and people who were actually eligible for some indigent veterans benefits. So something to think about. And in my thoughts about, I wasn't mowing the lawn, but I was walking through the wilderness, literally, the last week up in Alaska. And it did occur to me that we have developable property in Tacoma that is on Union and is, I think, multifamily zoned. It's on that side of the street, on the south side of Maple. So that might even be something that could be contributed to that effort, because I'm open to Mr. Wilkie's, I would say, inquiries. What happens if you blow a library district up? Where do the pieces fall? What would the cash flow be? If we did something ourselves, when would the startups be? What state funding might be available? All those things, because we need a public library facility and we're not being well served. And we've tried so long to assist the process, and all we've got in return is pulling the plug without giving us notice and with no plan to go forward. So it's totally irresponsible, in my opinion, and I hold them entirely accountable. And I'm ready to be the attack lawyer that I was sometimes hired to be, as opposed to the conciliatory negotiating a settlement that everybody can live with lawyer that I always wanted to be. But sometimes it takes the other hat to get things done. And so I'm open to anything that looks like a viable alternative to get more services to Lakewood citizens faster. Thanks.
I would just say to you, at the Memorial Day weekend out here in Silicon, we had a long conversation about that same topic. So the mayor and I have been talking about the same thing. What can we do? How can we? So maybe we can come together with some kind of conclusion. So that would be good. Councilmember Farmer.
Thank you. I made it to the farmer's market a little bit late, and so they several of the vendors had already run out of food and had shut down. But there was still a ton of folks there, and it was very vibrant, and it was one of the most diverse groups of people that I've seen in a very long time, and it was very heartening. Change is hard, and so it was a little odd to see the location, but the more I stood there and thought about it, it's got multiple avenues in and out. You can park all over the place, and then when the concerts come into play, there's a much more natural transition. People might stay for them instead of, because you have to walk all the way across the field from where it was located before. And so I see the synergy of having those together. But there were all sorts of new vendors there that I hadn't experienced before, and it was, I'm sold, drunk the Kool-Aid. It was great. The Pierce County Library Board, their next meeting is July 13th. It's a Wednesday. They meet in the middle of the day, which is difficult for those of us who work, 3:30 in the afternoon. I don't know if we are available to get leave of work or from our retirement schedules, but it might behoove us to show up. I'm not sure I'm ready to be in the library business, but I'm very interested in having furthering the conversation about how we can get our library back open here in Lakewood.
Where do they meet?
They meet at their administrative building. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Off 512. Yeah. That's where their headquarters are.
Oh, wow.
Office used to be, you'd think I'd have the address memorized, but I don't. And then I've heard some rumblings about about backups at the roundabout. I believe it's on Nyanza and Veterans. It's the new one that just opened over there. And I'm hoping that the backups during rush hour are a byproduct of some of the other roads that are closed with the other construction. But I'm hearing some grumbling from residents, so I can follow up with that. That's all I have.
Councilmember Bell.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I went to the Lake City neighborhood meeting and they did talk about the roundabouts and interlocking and how they weren't getting, putting their life at danger anymore. And they really liked it. And I go that way to go to my parents' house, and I've been making sure I've been using both of the roundabouts regularly. I think it's getting better. I hope it is. So I really love the improvements down there, and I think that the Lake City neighborhood group really enjoyed it too. They had great things to say. It was a great meeting. Nice to see them all in person. It was at the fire station. So that was very encouraging. I also would like to voice my support to looking into some options for the library. I actually talked to my child this weekend as we drove past the Stillicum Library, and she's like, where am I going to go this summer? What are we going to do? Where am I going to get my books? Am I going to do the reading program? Am I going to do, and I know you can do things online. We could go to different libraries, but she has really come to love the Lakewood Library. And so we had to talk about that a little bit, and was not the best, but she's been using the libraries since she was very, very little. So I would love to get some more options to figure out something for the residents. So I think that's a great suggestion, and I join the chorus of frustration. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I would just add to Mr. Branstadter's comments to tour the emergency food bank. I did that earlier this year, this last month, actually. And it was interesting. They've done a lot. It's really nice, and the plans are great. So that'll be a good tour for you. The AWC conference, I will be joining it virtual. I think it's on Wednesday that I'm scheduled to join on that one. And for the roundabout, I've only been through the one over here by Washington Boulevard, and I love it. I feel safer now. So, is there anything else?
He left.
Mr. Branstad.
Let me just add my 2 cents about where we should go with the library. One is that I share the disappointment that what happened is a result of years of neglect. Yeah, and that doesn't exude confidence that the same organization will then come up with a grand solution to be able to go and do that. That for years they've talked about what the long-term solution to a new library for Lakewood is going to have to be. A ballot measure that gives the library district money to come up with something. Well, if the viable alternative is for us to partner with Puyallup or Tacoma or something, or to start our own library, I think we should do that. And I think maybe we should make sure, I think going to the meetings is good, but that we should make sure that the representatives that we appointed to that committee should know that we are open to the committee considering something other than some kind of facility run by the rural library district. And I think maybe we should ask to make sure that there's an inventory of the assets of the Lakewood Library, so that if we should decide to go another way and be able to go and do that, that all those things, the materials that were in the library, are recoverable to use for a Lakewood Library, no matter who is running it.
Anything else? We good? Thank you. It is 9:30 and we are adjourned.